The town of Sabrum Tripura, nestled near the border, was usually a place of quiet routines. People knew each other, or thought they did. The Tripura family seemed ordinary from the outside. A mother, a stepfather, a bright little girl named Ujashika, and Sahel. Sahel was the older boy, 18 years old. He was often quiet. Too quiet, perhaps. He moved through the town like a shadow. Few people really noticed him. He was just there. This seeming ordinariness made the events of January 14, 2025 all the more shocking. A day that would forever be etched in Sabrum's memory. A day a brother took his sister's life. Sahel was not always a shadow. There was a time, his early years, before his mother remarried, before Ujashika. He was a child then, like any other. But memories of that time grew faint. They were overshadowed by a persistent feeling. A feeling of being on the margins. Of being less loved, less seen, less important. This feeling did not spring up overnight. It was a slow accumulation, like dust settling in an unused room, layer upon layer, until the original surface was completely obscured. He was the forgotten photograph, left in a drawer. The world saw a quiet boy. They did not see the storm brewing within. The arrival of Ujashika changed everything for Sahel, or so it felt to him. His mother had remarried. Ujashika was the child of this new union. She was bright, she was bubbly, she was doted upon. Sahel watched. He saw the smiles his sister received. He heard the terms of endearment. He noticed the new toys, the special treats, and he compared. He compared it to the scraps of attention he felt he received, if any at all. It was a stark contrast, a daily reminder of his perceived lesser status in the family. Sahel was the child from a previous life. A reminder perhaps of a past his mother had moved on from. He felt like an afterthought. Ujashika was the present, the future, the golden child. The difference in treatment was not always overt. Sometimes it was subtle, a quicker dismissal of his concerns, a more perfunctory interest in his day. But to a child's sensitive heart, these subtleties were like hammer blows, each one reinforcing the narrative forming in his mind. He was not as loved. He was not as wanted. He did not matter as much. This perceived favoritism became the fertile ground for resentment. As the years passed, Sahel's withdrawal became more pronounced. He was a ship drifting further and further from shore. At school, his grades began to slip. He, who had once shown promise, now seemed disinterested, lost in his own world. Teachers noted his increasing detachment, his lack of participation, his preference for solitude. But in a busy school environment, such quiet fading can easily be overlooked, mistaken for shyness or teenage moodiness. No alarm bells rang loud enough for intervention. No one reached out to pull him back. His retreat was not confined to school. At home, he spent more and more time alone in his room. It was his only refuge, a place where he did not have to witness the constant reminders of his perceived insignificance. He would emerge for meals, eat in silence, and then disappear again. The vibrant sounds of family life, the laughter, the chatter, mostly excluded him, or he excluded himself. It was hard to tell where one ended and the other began. In the weeks leading up to that dreadful January morning, Sahel's behavior became more overtly disturbing. The quiet withdrawal began to fray at the edges, revealing glimpses of the turmoil beneath. He started speaking in cryptic riddles, phrases that hinted at his inner pain, but were too oblique for anyone to grasp their true meaning. Sometimes people don't realize how much they hurt others, he once murmured to a neighbor. The neighbor dismissed it. Teenage angst, perhaps. A passing phase. No one dug deeper. No one asked the right questions. His physical actions also became erratic. Family members, when they noticed, saw him staring blankly at walls for long periods, as if transfixed by something only he could see. At night, he would pace his room, whispering to himself. The words were indistinct, muffled, but the agitation was palpable. A neighbor once saw him standing motionless in the yard late one evening. Just standing, staring into the darkness. It was unsettling, but again it was filed away, chalked up to adolescent strangeness. January 14th. A morning of unspeakable horror. The morning of January 14th, 2025, dawned like any other in Sabrum. The air was cool. The sounds of the town waking up were familiar. Inside the Tripura household, however, the ordinary was about to shatter. Ujashika, all of 9 years old, was in her bedroom. Perhaps she was playing. Perhaps she was getting ready for school. Her life, full of promise and parental affection, was about to be brutally extinguished. The simmering resentment in Sahel, nurtured over years of perceived neglect, had reached its boiling point. It was ready to erupt. Suddenly, a sound pierced the morning calm. A sharp, piercing scream. It was abrupt, cut short. Neighbors heard it. A sound so filled with terror it made their blood run cold. It was the kind of sound that signals something terribly wrong, something unnatural, something violent. There was a brief, horrifying silence that followed, a silence more terrifying than the scream itself. Then, chaos, the dawning realization that the unthinkable had happened. In the immediate aftermath, amidst the confusion and horror, Sahel spoke. His words were few, but they were laden with years of accumulated pain. "She got everything," he stated, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. "I got nothing." This simple, stark declaration was his confession, his motive, his entire worldview condensed into a few chilling words. It was the cry of a heart that believed itself to be utterly deprived, utterly forgotten. It was the justification in his broken mind for an act that had no true justification. He repeated this sentiment over and over. "She got everything. I got nothing." It was a mantra of perceived injustice, a testament to the deep chasm of resentment that had grown between him and his sister. A chasm fueled by years of feeling second best, of feeling invisible. The tragedy in Sabroom soon attracted the attention of experts. Dr. Ananya Chakraborty, a respected behavioral psychologist, offered her insights. She explained that consistent emotional neglect, especially when a child perceives a sibling as being favored, can create profound psychological wounds. These wounds, if left unaddressed, do not simply disappear. They fester, they deepen. They can warp a child's perception of themselves and the world. Sahel's actions, she suggested, were not a sudden snap. They were the catastrophic eruption of years spent believing he was unworthy of love, unseen, unvalued. Dr. Chakraborty elaborated on the concept of emotional deprivation. It's not just about the absence of overt abuse, it's about the absence of essential emotional nourishment, the lack of consistent affection, the lack of validation, the lack of feeling truly seen and heard by one's primary caregivers. For a child, this can be as damaging as physical neglect. It can lead to a fragile sense of self. The news of Ujashika's murder at the hands of her own brother sent shockwaves through Sabroom. The small town, usually preoccupied with its daily rhythms, the development of the new land port, or local concerns like power cuts, was plunged into a state of disbelief and horror. This was not something that happened here, not in their community. Neighbors who had known the Tripura family, even superficially, struggled to comprehend the brutality of the act. How could a young boy, quiet and withdrawn as he was, be capable of such violence against his little sister? Parents in Sabroom clutched their own children tighter. A collective anxiety settled over the community. They began to question what they might be missing in their own homes. Were there silent sufferings they were blind to? Were their own children harboring hidden resentments? Teachers at the local schools reflected on Sahel, wondering if they had missed crucial warning signs, if they could have done more. The tragedy forced an uncomfortable introspection upon the entire town. It shattered the illusion of idyllic, trouble-free family life. It brought the dark realities of emotional distress and familial dysfunction into sharp, painful focus. Sahel was remanded to juvenile detention. He remained emotionally detached. Psychologists began the difficult task of trying to delve deeper into his fractured psyche, to understand the full extent of the damage that had led him to this point. The heartbreaking story of Sahel and Ujashika Tripura is more than just a local tragedy for Sabroom. It is a profound and painful lesson for all of us. It underscores the critical importance of nurturing healthy family dynamics, where every child feels seen, heard, valued, and loved. Not just in grand gestures, but in the small, everyday interactions, the consistent presence, the attentive ear, the reassuring word. These are the building blocks of a child's emotional well-being. Without them, the foundation can crumble, sometimes with devastating consequences. This case screams for greater mental health awareness and for early intervention. Sahel's descent was not sudden. It was a gradual slide, marked by clear, albeit often misinterpreted, signs of distress. We, as a society, need to become better at recognizing these signs in our children, in our students, in the young people around us. And we need to create safe spaces where they feel comfortable expressing their pain.